that Defenders helped build. I think they've changed shape now. I think they're flat on the top, but they can cost share. They are trying to get more people north of the river aware that they have this program, so that, you know, obviously some of the people north of the river aren't necessarily going to have a panther issue just because there aren't as many up here, but it doesn't mean that you might not still have bobcats or coyotes or something in the area. So if people are interested in having one of those, Defenders has this program, which I brought a few handouts back there, but I think these didn't make it somehow. But if you go on Defender's website, this is all on there. And it does work. This is from Florida. That's a bobcat. That's someone's chicken coop. There's no sound on the video, unfortunately, because I think the chickens are going bonkers. Oh, we can't give it up yet. And the camera's really low, which also gives kind of the illusion that this cat's probably bigger than it is. I mean, bobcats in Florida probably at tops weigh 25 pounds. But like I said, they get really tall and leggy. So you just see this big old leggy cat walk around and you think, oh my gosh, 50-pound bobcat's huge. They're not that big until you get to like New York or something. But you see, it works. And they've been really successful with this down in especially Golden Gate Estates, like I said. They have helped people build lots of pens so that they don't lose goats. And someone just lost a pony in the last week, I think, a miniature pony in Golden Gate Estates. And I'm hoping that they get a pen after this. But what happens if you're out and you see a panther? Not as good a chance of it up here, but you know, I don't know where y'all drive off to go do your stuff. Plus, it applies to bears. You got bears. You trip your friend and you run faster than them. Throw your kid, no. No, the biggest thing is don't run. Maintain your ground. You know, give them space, but make sure they know you're there. Stay big and tall. Scream and yell if you have to. If you do scream and yell with words so that you sound like a human. You just scream like a yell. You don't sound a whole lot different than an animal. You know, make eye contact. You want to make sure they know that you're there. You see them, they see you. You're not going to back down. You know, do keep your small children close or your pets, you know, pull the leash back. If you have to, throw sticks, whatever. And the biggest thing is to fight back if you're attacked. You know, there's a thing, I think, for grizzlies that if you play dead, they leave you alone. I actually don't know if that's true, but I do know it's not true for panthers or black bears. We've never had anything escalate to this. We've had people have encounters on trails where they come up and just a few feet away there's a panther standing there or a bear, and you know, clap your hands, make some noise, and they're usually gone. Sometimes they will sit and stare at you for a minute, kind of act real nonchalant, lick a paw, and that's just because they don't see us as prey, but they don't see us as a threat necessarily. It's just they're kind of indifferent to us. If you have a house cat at home, you know what I'm talking about. I have cats, and they act like this all the time. Like, whether I'm there or not, that's kind of a cat thing. But like I said, there are some things we're trying to do to make it easier for panthers to live in Florida, not just down south, but to get north of the river. And a lot of that is wildlife crossings. Obviously, I'm sure you know about all the wildlife crossings that are on Alligator Alley. Those are the ones that were built for panthers. There are a few other ones, like up on State Road 60, you see those yellow arrows. Those were built for panthers because many, many years ago there was a collared panther in that area, and I think they were about to do road construction, and somehow somebody pulled some strings and made that happen. I don't know, but there's probably not any resident panthers up there, but you know, it's still good they're there. Other wildlife use them besides panthers, obviously. All those blue triangles are bear roadkill. I took off the panther roadkill south of the river because it would have just been too much red on there for you to see, but you see where the ones north of the river are. Where there are some planned crossings, some of these ones like for sure are happening. The one on State Road 80, which is right here, you see it's right next to one. That's actually a really cool one because the one that's complete, that was just a canal under the road. And they went in and they added shelves on the side and some fencing. on the road and basically made it a wildlife crossing when it was just already just a bridge over a canal. And they're doing the same thing to the next canal down, which I think some of those other ones up there are the same kind of thing. The ones on I-4, those are still kind of a big maybe, but FDOT District 1 is really trying really hard to get crossings in on I-4. So this is the one on State Road 80. Right after they finished the construction, I got down there and put cameras, and after a while I got this female walking down the riprap. And if you look really close in the corner, you see one little body go by and another little body go by, and that was 2 kittens following her, which at the time in 2015 was the farthest north we'd seen a female kittens, and this is just south of the river. But it's a really cool area because you got State Road 80, there's a little sliver of land between State Road 80 and the river, which went under a conservation easement, and then that same exact spot, but just south of that crossing, south of State Road 80, is a 5,000 acre ranch that's now under a conservation easement. And just in the last few, 6 months or so, the property just north of the river on that same stretch went under a conservation easement. So basically we're protecting this corridor for panthers to get across. We know that panthers are in that area, we know they've used that area in the past. It's also the narrowest part of the Palousatchee, so it's also just a really good place to cross if you're going to swim. This is that crossing. Walking across at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The car is coming over. That's a good sign. This is one of the main things that I do at my new company, and one of the things that facilitated the move was to do a study looking at how can we come up with more cost-effective ways to get crossings. They don't necessarily have to be a crossing built from scratch. Those ones built from scratch start at like $4 million and go up. And a lot of that has to do with fill dirt. I didn't know this before, but apparently for every 1 foot of fill dirt, it's like $1 million. So if we can find out that panthers and bears will use 5 feet versus 8 feet, you just save $3 million. But maybe it doesn't even have to be built from scratch. Can we go to places where, especially north of the river, where you've got all of these different rivers and creeks and things, there's already bridges across these. Can we go into some of these and just add shelves or add fencing and basically make it a crossing for so much cheaper? And so I've been putting cameras of pink, or purple, I'm sorry, little stars, or all the places I've had cameras so far, and most of them are just bridges where if you walk underneath, it happens to have, when it's not rainy season, places just dirt across next to the creek before you get to the bridge, and it basically is a nice big walkway for anything to walk underneath. And we're looking for not only how panthers and bears would use it, but also white-tailed deer, because deer get really weird about what kind of things they like to walk under. They get really nervous. So if we can figure out something that works for all of those things, we can get better corridors, better movement, and mitigate these roadkill. And that's important because this is the Florida 2070 project. If you've never heard of it, you can go on their website. On the left is basically what it looked like in 2010, and the red is development. The dark green is what's already been protected, so usually state or federal land. And then the other basically is like private land, ranches and stuff. If we continue exactly as we are now with no changes, it's going to look like on the right. That's a lot more red. We've basically cut off any connections. I-4 is done for. There's nothing getting across there. But if we change the way we do things and we think about wildlife corridors and conservation easements and how animals move through the landscape while we develop, we can still develop, but we can do it differently. And it could look like this. And there's a lot more green on there, and a lot more green connecting to other green, with the red kind of concentrated in other areas. And a couple of examples of why that is so important. This is a panther that we rescued 2014 outside of Fort Meade, which is kind of south of Lakeland. Let's just say that roughly if you're not familiar. Someone hit the panther with his car on accident at night, but he saw the panther run off, so he called. We went out there, crawled around in the woods till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to find this guy. Probably walked by him like 5 times before we found him, and he had a broken leg. He went to Gainesville to UF and had surgery. He then went to White Oak Conservation outside of Jackson, Jacksonville, where he was rehabbed over a period of time, and then he was released on Kissimmee Prairie State Park, which is basically because it was kind of the closest place we could get to where we picked him up without sticking him somewhere with a lot of roads. And when we let him go, he had a GPS collar, and that was in January 2015. This is what he did while his collar worked. They don't always do what you want them to do. It lasted until about September, October of that year. He covered 800 miles. He swam the Kissimmee River the night we let him out. He was like, I'm out. He almost beelined it straight back to Fort Meade. All those points over there is him hanging out on some old mine land, some reclamation mine land near Fort Greene. And coming back over across 27 multiple times, came up around Lake Kissimmee, went down the turnpike, looked like he was riding in a car, basically trying to figure out where he could get across. Finally figures out he can get across at Yeehaw Junction. Spent some time hopping around over there, got over to 95, crossed 95 multiple times, went all the way up to St. Sebastian River State Park, went all the way up to Palm Bay, was like, you know, the GPS location when I'm looking at it online is like, there's a house just right around the corner. I'm thinking like, oh. And, you know, not that anything bad's gonna happen, but I'm just wanting him to get away from roads. He did the whole thing again. After his collar died, we sent the release for it to come off. It took a little while before it finally dropped, but so after we're not getting locations anymore, we got 2 more photos of him. He went all the way down to Martin County, it's off the map, to Alapata Flats, where a hunter got a picture of him on a game camera that he submitted to us. We knew it was him because it was collar. And then up in like the middle part of Okeechobee County, like a month later, he a landowner got a photo of him that he sent us. So he did that even after all that. The collar did eventually drop, and so we don't know where he is or whether he's still out there. He does have ear tags, so if anybody ever got a decent picture, we would know it was him, but so far, nothing since at least 2015, late 2015. But just to give you an idea, it's a landscape scale conservation. I mean, this guy covered 800 miles, he almost went coast to coast. The same kind of example, but with a bear. This is M34. Have you ever seen the Florida Wildlife Corridor expedition films? They talk about him in the first one. Joe Guthrie collared him as part of his masters. Collared him near Sebring, which is a little dot down there in the ridge in the middle there. But then you can see his movements. He goes all the way down to Lake O, kind of follows along, hits Kissimmee Prairie, you know. Yeah. I think I went the wrong way. He went north first. Crossed Avon Park bombing range, went over to Kissimmee, Lake Kissimmee, ended up there. You see him kind of bump 2 places up there before coming back down. That's I-4. He could never figure out how to get across I-4. And that's when he came all the way back down, all the way down the Kissimmee River to Lake O, went over to the edge of Babcock, and then back over before his collar dropped, I think. So, I mean, I forget the total number of miles, but probably on the scale of what we saw on FP232. So landscape scale conservation, you're talking about private lands, public lands, roads. I mean, there's so much that comes into play. But why do we do the things we do, and why do we do the things we do, like, you know, companies and agencies and all that stuff, but then also what if the public, you know, people like you that come to meetings like this to learn about it and spread the word. We do it, this is why I do it, and this is why I think y'all do too. This is the female at Babcock. That was one of the last videos that we got of her with her second set of kittens. We saw them last in February. So we kind of hit that gap again where we don't know where she is. She's probably still at Babcock because her home range wouldn't be big enough to go elsewhere. It's kind of what happened last year where she kind of disappeared all through the rainy season. And it's not looking like maybe the kittens made it again. If she follows the same pattern, sometime in this month or next month, she should pop back out with a new litter of kittens. So, you know, it's unfortunate. We'd like to see her have a successful litter, and I think she will. Like I said, they get better as they go. So at some point, she'll have a successful litter, and they'll disperse and go off into the landscape. And this other female over in the Venus Glades County area will do the same. So it's a huge deal. This is just a really pretty picture of her because Carlton has way better cameras than me. That's the female from Babcock Ranch, and some of the partners that we work with. There's my email and phone number if you ever have questions. I still do cameras on some locations, as many as I can with my personal cameras. And then the Panther Sightings website is always a good place that if you get a photo or you know somebody who gets a photo, you can enter it there, and they will review it and verify it if it is or not. And that's all I have. Thank you.